So, I've been using the Google Pixel 7 Pro for a week, and while there are some great things about this particular phone, there are several drawbacks that I found with this almost $900 smartphone. So let's pixel peep and find out how it compares against the iPhone 14 Pro Max and the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra. And speaking of which, here is a photo comparison between all of the three phones. Can you guess which is the Pixel? Let me know in the comment section below, as you'll be quite surprised by its results, which I will reveal later. Now, before anything, I want to say thank you to my buddy Muaz Malik for loaning me the unit. Now, as usual during my review videos, I won't go into the specs details of the phone, so feel free to pause this video if you like to see it, just for your reference. Now let's first start with the positives. Now, Pixel being Pixel, I've always thought that the clean Android software experience beats every Android smartphone out there. Now, this is not because Google makes Android, because Samsung's One UI is still my preferred option even compared to this phone. But things like having the Google Home at the menu, selecting easy color themes based on the wallpaper, the always-on listening music feature, and the upcoming What's Next calendar seems like a simple feature to have, but that is why I just love it. And at first, I thought that I would not like the app prediction menu at the bottom of the phone, but it did an excellent job by making sure that the apps that I was using and planning on using were there, which is kinda a scary thought too, since Google is always listening, but convenience factor, that's a plus for me. Now, while the Pixel 6 has tons of bugs that sometimes were fixed and then it came back again, as of the recording of this video, it is nice that Google has took a huge bug exterminator and spray all of the bugs, hence making this phone a way better experience when I was using it daily for a week. Now, with Google's very own Tensor G2 chipset, they have also added some enhancement like the super intelligent speech detection, which I felt was the best, and yes, even slightly beating the new Siri detection feature on the iPhone, especially with my Malaysian Indian accent. However, the other software enhancement like the photo unblur, if you take a blurred image because your phone shook while you're taking a photo, you can actually unblur those in a software optimization. Now, while that is cool and some may find it helpful, I never ever used it before, as I do feel that is quite a hit or miss based on my tests, because everything may not be how that you might expect it to be. Then the magic eraser sometimes did work, sometimes did not. So in my humble opinion, just practice and learn to take better pictures. And if someone is photo bombing you, just ask them,
what the fuck are you doing?
And knowing the fact there are 3 years of software updates and another 2 years of security updates, that is definitely a huge factor on why you should consider the phone. Then the Pixel 7 Pro has done a very good job in the overall image processing moving forward, as they tend to be over-sharpened at times on the previous Pixel phones. Now, speaking of image processing, if you want a really versatile camera smartphone, then this phone might be worth getting. As the Pixel Bin 50 megapixel main camera pictures look very great indeed. Then the ultra-wide lenses were really great as a more of a point and shoot kind of way. But if you want to compare it against the S22 Ultra and also the iPhone, that will be a totally different story. Now, in this photo comparison, the ultra-wide lenses for the Pixel had a slight edge on the better shadows, but I prefer the overall ultra-wide shots of the S22 Ultra. The dynamic range on all of the phones for the ultra-wide shots are identical, so it does come down to your preferred color, and of course you can always adjust it in post. Now, going into the main lenses, when putting it side by side by the other Samsung and also iPhone's flagships, I'm still leaning towards the S22 Ultra's image, and this could be due to its larger sensor. And I have to say that I love the 5x optical zoom, which had one of the best focal length compared to other smartphones that I've tested. And knowing that this is a 48 megapixel lens, and even though with a higher aperture of 3.5, the images still turn out great. Now, I've always said that the iPhone 14 Pro Max or even the 13 Pro Max had one of the best, if not the best, macro photography, and I can say that the Pixel 7 Pro joins the gang of having a great macro shot. Then for the rear portrait mode, when taking photos of objects, the dynamic range for the background area was equally as good, but the S22 Ultra does a better job on the edge detection. Then switching over to the portrait mode for humans, just comparing the Pixel against the iPhone 14 Pro Max, the edge detection on the tip of the hair was way better on the iPhone instead. Then when it comes to the front camera shots, going back to when I first got my hands on the Pixel 2 XL, that phone was the phone, as there's no other smartphone that could come close to being as good as the Pixel, and as time passed by, the Samsung and also the iPhone caught up pretty well. And based on these images, I would say that now I prefer the pictures coming out from the iPhone, as the skin tones and the over sharpening was not as extreme compared to the Pixel, and of course the S22 Ultra always gave a more than usual vibrant color tone. And speaking of which, out of all the pictures, which is the Pixel? Well, here's your answer. Now I have to say that I still really love the night side pictures on any Pixel devices, so the pictures produced were one of the best when it comes to the night mode shots. Now moving over to the video recording, it looked great with excellent dynamic range, and the image stabilization for the main and the ultra wide was also great too. Next, all three phones also comes with the cinematic mode, with all coming with different available names. But the biggest drawback that I found with the Pixel is the fact that it does not have this cinematic mode for the front camera, where it is available both on the iPhone and also the S22 Ultra. So looking at the rear camera samples for this cinematic mode, the iPhone obviously does a way better job, as the phone records up to 4K. But I have to say that the Pixel goes on second place with a better video quality than the slightly over-sharpened video on the S22 Ultra. Then the Pixel joined Samsung to be the only two Android smartphones to have front 4K video recording. Yes, I'm talking about you, Xiaomi, and all the other Chinese smartphones, where the image stabilization was excellent, but compared side to side to the king of smartphone front camera video, the iPhone has a nicer and sharper image compared to the S22 Ultra and the Pixel as well. So one of the things that I really wanted to test out is the audio recording on the Google Pixel 7 Pro, because apparently it also has noise cancellation for the microphone. So I intentionally went outside, so I'm outdoor. There's quite a amount of wind, and also I'm literally next to a highway as well. So you could be the judge whether or not the microphones is great or the Pixel 7 Pro. So with this, I still think that the Pixel 7 Pro has a great camera if you don't really compare it side by side with the other flagship smartphones, because ultimately this could be based on a personal preference, or am I just being too nice on the Pixel 7 Pro? Well, if you guys are enjoying this video so far, be sure to give this video a nice big thumbs up. That will be very much appreciated to stick out from this YouTube algorithm, and a subscription will be very sweet too. Thank you in advance. Now going into the final two more reasons, next would be gaming, because while I'm not a huge fan of how the phone feels in my hands when I play games for a longer duration, more on that later, gaming on this phone has been great, with maximum settings on Genshin Impact with very minimum warmth at the back of the phone. Now this is with motion blur turned on, beating the gaming performance of the S22 Ultra, but on par with the iPhone. Then as for the final reason on why you should probably get the phone is the phone's battery life, as it did get me an average of 7.5 hours of heavy usage, which was better than the S22 Ultra and about the same as the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and this is because of the huge 5000 mAh of battery, so that was quite expected when it comes to this phone's battery life. Alright, so in a nutshell, you should get the Pixel 7 Pro for its software, battery, gaming and cameras. Is that it? Unfortunately, yes, because there are some reasons why you should probably not get the Pixel 7 Pro. Firstly, the hardware on the Pixel 7 Pro is definitely not worth shouting about, because even though I love the haptics of the phone, and while yes, the design looks nice and fresh, although it had a very similar design to the Pixel 6, and I found the phone to be extremely slippery, and there was a huge risk of dropping the phone. And if you're one of those who rock a phone without a case, this obsidian color, or shall I say black, is such a fingerprint magnet. Check it out. And yes, the polished aluminum camera bump gets scratches very easily, so please keep that in mind. But the slightly good news is that the camera bump does help when it comes to the phone wobbling on a surface, like if you place it on your table. Now another minor thing, and this may not be an issue for anybody else, but I find that it kind of annoyed me is the placement of the power button on top and also the volume rocker below on the right hand side, which made me do a lot of accidental pressing of the shutter button when I was trying to lock the phone. Now I do understand that in time you'll get used to it due to the muscle memory, but that is something that kind of got me quite a while for me to get used to, especially if you're coming from a Samsung phone or even an iPhone flagship. Then the following reason that I feel that you should not go out and immediately buy the phone is for the phone screen. Now this is not because the screen is horrible, it's because I feel that as a supposedly flagship smartphone from Google, the screen is not even close to being as good as how the S22 Ultra or even the iPhone 14 Pro Max 2. Now out of the box it is switched to a resolution of 1080, so keep that in mind, and even though I switched to the 1440p or QHD Plus display, I found the screen to be just mediocre at best, and I felt that the display was a bit dull whether or not I change it to the natural or the adaptive mode. By itself, just looking at daily is fine, but if you really compare it with the other flagships, here's where you'll see the difference. Now, this could also be because it's using the first generation LTPO panel, so it does not go all the way to 1Hz when it's not being used, but instead it goes to 10Hz instead. But I have to say that the refresh rate was nice and smooth, and the display quality for consuming media was just okay, as I mentioned earlier, and it wouldn't be the biggest reason to go out and get it. Next, the stereo speakers on the Pixel 7 Pro was one of the worst to compare to the iPhone and also the S22 Ultra, with the iPhone being the best of the lot, where the speakers sounded so hollow in comparison on the Pixel 7 Pro, and its highs were almost fully drowned by the music. And here's where I felt that Google should stuck to the front stereo speakers as they did in the Pixel 2 XL starting from then. Then if you're looking to game on the phone, well, I did mention that the performance on the gaming was great, but because of how the build quality was and how it was super slippery, I wouldn't get this phone when it comes to long gaming sessions. Now, not only it was really uncomfortable during a longer gameplay, and because it is so slippery, if you're the kind of person who gets your hands sweaty easily, then halas. Then while Google was boasting about how Face Unlock is back on the Pixel, let me tell you that while Face Unlock works, but it only works in a brighter environment, not during low light or if you have a mask on. Now this is because there's no infrared or radar sensor from the Pixel 4, and what's weird is that it can also sometimes unlock your phone with one eye open. So if you're looking for a secure phone with proper authentication for important apps like banks or such, the phone does not allow you to do so. It's as though that Google themselves is saying that, the phone or the Face Unlock is not as secure. Then the final reason why you should not get the Google Pixel 7 Pro is that if you are from countries like here in Malaysia, where there are no official Google store. Like, seriously, Google? Until now, no Google store in Malaysia. Now you can argue there's no official Apple store here in Malaysia, but at least there are some very good reputable authorized resellers. And speaking of country specific, cool features like the call screening is not also available in Malaysia, so that is a huge bummer. So since I've laid it down very clearly for you, I would like to know what you think. Would you now consider getting the Pixel 7 Pro? Let me know in the comment section below. Now speaking of flagship smartphones, do check out my full video review of the S22 Ultra and the iPhone 14 Pro Max over here after 1 month of use.